In spite of the fact that its individual flowers are so small, milkwort is one of those wildflowers that you can recognise and name from a standing position because of its distinctive growth form. In isolated groups like this, because it only spreads by seed. And when you do look at them with a hand lens, you find that the flowers are almost bird-like in appearance. And even back in the 17th century, when John Gerard described the flower, he spoke of it as being of a blue colour, in form not unlike a bird, a little bird without a tail and a head. The same easily to be discerned by those that do observe them. And indeed, there's something almost orchid-like about the flower when you first look at it with a hand lens. And in spite of the fact that the flowers are not nearly so highly evolved as the flowers of orchids, it's almost as difficult to find words to describe the structure of the flower simply. This is the typical colour. This blue-purple colour is the normal colour for milkwort. But you can find flowers which are white in colour, pink, mauve, and sometimes even a pale blue. And it comes as something of a surprise to learn that if you cross white flowers with pink flowers, you get blue ones. There are 5 sepals, 2 of which, these 2 blue wings at the side, function as the flower's signal flag to pollinators. These turn green as soon as the flower is fertilized. The flower takes down its advertising, so to speak. But these sepals are retained, closing over the fertilized flower to shelter the developing seeds. And there are 3 petals, 2 of which overlap at the top of the flower to form an awning over the 3rd petal, which has an amazingly complex structure. The upper part of this 3rd petal, under the awning, is made up of branched finger-like processes, about 15 of them, whitish in colour but with bluish tips, in blue flowers that is, and this acts as the landing platform for visitors. The lower part, towards the back, is a pocket covered by 2 curtains with frilly edges that meet in the middle. These curtains enclose the stamens and the upper part of the style. There are 2 sets of 4 stamens attached to the side petals, and their filaments are united to form a sort of flange attached to the petal. They look a bit like a set of green dentures with 8 orange teeth. Above this is a stout curved style that broadens upwards from a 2-chambered ovary. And at the end of the style, just below the stigma, is a deeply curved spoon-like structure. The stigma itself is a sticky, hook-like downward protrusion at the end of the style. Nectar is secreted at the base of the flower. This diagrammatic cross-section of the flower will help you to see how the different parts fit together. It also acts as an introduction to the kind of fusion of floral parts that reaches its most extreme development in orchids. The source of this diagram is given at the end of the video, if you want to download and study it more closely. The 2 side petals are tightly and intricately folded around the stamens and style, a very important detail if their response to the weight of an alighting insect on the 3rd landing petal is to be choreographed with the necessary precision. The pressure exerted by an alighting insect opens a little window, framed by the 2 side petals, whose outer edges curve inwards so that they overlap. This pressure also pulls the pouch at the back of the landing petal forward, and because the stamens are attached to the side petals, it pulls the orange anthers below the level of the styler scoop. The proboscis of an insect visitor brushes against the scoop as it enters, but the dry pollen doesn't adhere to it. As it probes further in, however, the sticky hook-like stigma can remove pollen picked up by the insect on another flower, and as the proboscis is withdrawn, some of the pollen in the scoop can now adhere to the sticky proboscis. If there are no visitors, the stigmatic lobe curves over to pick up pollen from the spoon, bringing about self-pollination. Apart from the attraction of the flowers to bees and butterflies, milkwort is a favourite food plant for the caterpillars of the common blue butterfly. Unusually, each flower only produces 2 seeds, which have an oil-rich body called an elaiosome attached that is sought after by black ants, which play an essential role in spreading the plant. It can only spread in this way. In earlier times, milkwort was thought to have the property of increasing the flow of milk in both animals and humans. And of course, that's what the English name milkwort actually means. But it's also what the scientific Latin name for the genus means. The generic name is polygala, which in Greek means abundance of milk. And milkwort was very closely associated with what were known as rogation days, where in every Christian country in Europe, down to relatively recent times, in the spring, on rogation days, processions were held around the fields and around the rim of the parish in order to invoke God's blessing on the crops for the year ahead. And this was actually the Christian takeover of a pagan Roman practice known as the Ambarvalia, when the same thing was done to invoke the blessing of Ceres, the Roman goddess of corn. And the connection of milkwort with the rogation day processions was this belief that it promoted the flow of milk.